Hey, talking to myself. Welcome to the podcast. I know that you gon' feel Dave Sands the second, talking movies and gaming, even anime. Yeah, I might just go Super Saiyan. 242, the Bahamas, we gon' rep. Don't be anxious about nothing. Philippians 4:6. Sharing about my life, sharing about God's truth. Always keep it real when I'm talking to myself. Let's go.
Mic check 1, 2, 3. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Talking to Myself podcast with your host, your boy, Dave G. Sands, numero dos. I hope everyone is having an amazing day or evening or morning or afternoon or night or whenever you're listening to this episode 3, man. Thank you for listening to the last two. If you have listened to the last two episodes, and if you have not, I recommend going back, after this one. But we have another exciting episode for you all today. Today, we will be talking about a couple things. One, we're going to be talking about press and publish, and then we're going to be getting into Ecclesiastes number 2, where King Solomon has dropped some gems and some game for us once again. And so if you enjoy this podcast, message me, DM me, let me know. And yeah, thank you for joining back. Or if it's your first time here, welcome. So let's talk about this idea of pressing publish. Now, this idea did not come from me. I think I mentioned in episode 1 and also in episode 2 how difficult it was for me to actually press that record button to actually start this podcast. And this idea of pressing publish came back from a YouTube group or YouTube creators, Colin and Samir. They made this ideology for their YouTube channel about pressing publish. And basically it's about getting over that fear and pressing publish to, that YouTube video or whatever it may be when you're creating content. And so originally I took this idea in terms of like, okay, I'm going to press publish in terms of like talking to friends. Like I'm going to press publish in WhatsApp, press publish in IG direct messages, things like that, to be interactive with more of my friends again, because I wanted to feel close with them again, right? But now I'm actually pressing publish for what pressing publish means, and that is releasing content. I just recently made a new Instagram reel. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's dealing with the squash, actually, and I have been enjoying squash. I mean, it's only like my maybe third or fourth time playing it, but it was absolutely fun. And then the thing about that reel was I had no intention of recording any content that day. Like literally I got to the squash courts because I made it a non-negotiable for me that I was going to squash that day to get another workout in, gotta stay in shape, you know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, I was just going to play squash, get a nice workout in, keep the legs going, keep myself in shape. But then the creative juices started to flow. Firstly, I was kind of annoyed because I have a gimbal that can work as a tripod. So I was just like, okay, I guess I can't record anything today, even though I got into a creative mode. But I used some rackets, and I used a racket and some cones to like stand up my phone in a certain position, like on the bleachers. And man, I got a crazy wide angle shot. And it was so beautiful. And it was crazy because it looked like my phone was like floating in midair, in the sense like it was so balanced. I was afraid that thing was going to drop down the stairs and basically break. But it was just perfectly aligned. And I was just like, okay, we might have something here. So I got like that overhead shot. And then I took my phone onto the court itself. I filmed in I put my phone in like the left angle of the court and then the right angle of the court. And then I put it at the center of the court where I filmed like a wide angle shot and then just like a normal angle shot. And it really came together. Like, I was kind of impressed. I was like, man, I did not realize that I had this in me today, but it came out absolutely beautiful. And it was doing numbers on TikTok because I have like a separate TikTok for like my film stuff. But then it got copyright striked, and I was just like, man, it was doing so well. I think that was gonna go viral. But nonetheless, it just felt really good to feel creative. And I think things like that and things like this podcast that feel like easy to create, I think that's true creativity, right? Like, I made like really TikTok-y content before, where I was trying to see if I could beat that algorithm, and it just wasn't working. But then with this video that felt so natural and it felt like a joy to make, that's what performed well. So I think the moral of the story is, when you're trying to be creative, make sure you're doing it for you. You know, make sure you're doing it for something that you actually enjoy. And, you know, I think once you make it from that creative juice, from that creative flow, I think you'll have a lot more fun with creativity. So if any content creators are watching this and you're finding yourself kind of in a rut sometimes with content, let me tell you, go back to your roots, go back to why you started the content, and go back to the enjoyment of actually, you know, making the content. You know, don't do it for the algorithm. Easier said than done, because I still want something to go viral. But nonetheless, it was so good to make a really good reel and a really fun piece of work. And so, yeah, that was just kind of my spiel on content creation and, you know, pressing publish, right? And so, you know, I hope that could help some of the other creative heads who are trying to create some amazing content for this world. And so, yeah, press publish. But with that being said, we'll then segue into the bigger part of today's episode, which is Ecclesiastes 2. And I mentioned in episode 2 that Ecclesiastes is the book dealing with the purpose of life, written by King Solomon. Study Bible says there may have been other other authors, but tradition says it's King Solomon. And listen to me, I'm still co-sign it again. Ecclesiastes got a lot of bars. If King Solomon was a rapper, he'd go triple platinum because there's a lot of bars in this chapter. So what I'm going to do is we're going to read through Ecclesiastes 2. I think we'll read through the whole thing because there is a lot of nuggets in here. And then we're going to break this thing down in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, come with me for the ride. We'll be reading from the New Living Translation, which will be a lot simpler. It'll have like simple wording and text that everyone can understand. So great. Let's go. Ecclesiastes 2. And it reads as follows. I said to myself, come on, let's try pleasure. Let's look for the good things in life. But I found that this too was meaningless. So I said, laughter is silly. What good does it do to seek pleasure? After much thought, I decided to cheer myself with wine. And while still seeking wisdom, I clutched at foolishness. In this way, I tried to experience the only happiness most people find during their brief life in this world. I also tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself and by planting beautiful vineyards. I made gardens and parks, filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect the water to irrigate my many flourishing groves. I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any of the kings who had lived in Jerusalem before me. I collected great sums of silver and gold, the treasure of many kings and provinces. I hired wonderful singers, both men and women. I had many beautiful concubines. I had everything a man could desire. So I became greater than all who had lived in Jerusalem before me, and my wisdom never failed me. Anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. I even found great pleasure in hard work, a reward for all my labors. But as I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so meaningless, like chasing the wind. There was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. Now going to verse 12. So I decided to compare wisdom with foolishness and madness. For who can do this better than I, the king? I thought, wisdom is better than foolishness, just as light is better than darkness. For the wise can see where they are going, but fools walk in the dark. Yet I saw that the wise and the foolish share the same fate. Both will die. So I said to myself, since I will end up the same as the fool, what's the value of all my wisdom? This is also meaningless, for the wise and the foolish both die. The wise will not be remembered any longer than the fool. In the days to come, both will be forgotten. So I came to hate life because everything done here under the sun is so troubling. Everything is meaningless, like chasing the wind. Verse 18, I came to hate all my hard work here on earth, for I must leave to others everything I have earned. And who can tell whether my successes will be wise or foolish? Yet they will control everything I have gained by my skill and hard work under the sun. How meaningless. So I gave up in despair, questioning the value of all my hard work in this world. Some people work wisely with knowledge and skill, then must leave the fruit of their efforts to someone who hasn't worked for it. Whew. This too is meaningless, a great tragedy. So what do people get in this life for all their hard work and anxiety? Their days of labor are filled with pain and grief. Even at night, their minds cannot rest. It is all meaningless. So I decided there is nothing better than to enjoy food and drink and to find satisfaction in work. Then I realized that these pleasures are from the hand of God. For who can eat or enjoy anything apart from him? God gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy to those who please him. But if a sinner becomes wealthy, God takes the wealth away and gives it to those who please him. This too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. And that is chapter 2 of Ecclesiastes, ladies and gentlemen. And boy, we got some nuggets in here. So, first and foremost, a lot of the titles, when you have like a study Bible, or I think any Bible in general, it gives the title of what the verses are a part of. So verses 1 to 11 talk about the futility of pleasure. Verses 12 to 17 talks about the wise and foolish. And verses 18 to 26 talk about the futility of work. And man, Solomon was talking here. So if we look at the beginning here, might as well brief. This man Solomon say, I'm going to try pleasure. And boy, did he try pleasure. What did he try here? He tried wine. He tried building huge homes and beautiful vineyards. Tried building reservoirs to collect water for his plants. Bought slaves. He had great sums of silver and gold. He had many beautiful concubines. He had everything. But he says here in verse 11, there was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. It says, but as I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was also meaningless, like chasing the wind. So, in this chapter, Solomon mentions the phrase, like chasing the wind. I wrote down 3 times. In verse 2 to 11, in verse 11, 17, and 26, he mentions that phrase, like chasing the wind. And I wanted to understand, like, what did he mean by chasing the wind? Like, what does that phrase mean? And so this is not my thinking. I literally had to search this up. So I went on Google. I had to find this website that kind of breaks this down. Chasing the wind is and this is the definition. Chasing after the wind is an expression captured from the Bible that depicts man's efforts to find anything of value outside of God's design plan for that person's life. It's to do everything you ever wanted to do to find happiness and still feel a void that the wind could just blow through. And man, that kind of tied everything together. Let's kind of put this in Bahamian terms. People, Solomon had Kalik. Solomon had gals. He had houses in Lightfoot Key. And this man still found life meaningless. He had everything. He had everything that, frankly, a Bahamian male would want. And women as well. He had everything. Money. Gals. For the woman. Husband. and he had everything, man. But yet, he says everywhere in this passage, it was all meaningless, like chasing the wind. And as you kind of go through this passage, you notice that, again, he mentions chasing the wind everywhere. So that means that you really can't find meaning in your life. You can't find purpose in your life without God. That's what Solomon is saying in this chapter here. Gals, money, kalik, meaningless. Then if we go into verses 12 to 17, he talks about the wise and the foolish. Like, it's so deep. And let me see, which verse does he really talk about this? Yeah, verse 12. So I decided to compare wisdom with foolishness and madness. For who can do this better than I, the king? I thought wisdom is better than foolishness, just like light. Just as light is better than darkness. For the wise can see where they are going, but fools walk in the dark. Yet I saw that the wise and the foolish share the same fate. They both die. So he thought that gaining all this wisdom that he had, like just being intelligent, but he probably could pass every single BGCSE with an A+. But guess what? Even him chasing after wisdom, trying to be better than the foolish, it's meaningless. Because at the end of the day, both the foolish and the wise going to end up 6 feet under anyway. And he says in verse 17, again, everything is meaningless, like chasing the wind. And then finally, he gets into the last part of this word here. Verses 18 to 26 talk about the futility of work. He says, I came to hate all my hard work here on earth, for I must leave to others everything I've earned. After doing all that hard work, whatever he did, he realized that, hey, I can't even keep all the stuff I work for. I can't keep my sandals back in the day now. He can't keep his sandals. He can't keep his mansions. He can't keep the gals. He can't keep the wine. He got to leave it all here for his ancestors, for his successors. Verse 19, and who can tell whether my successors will be wise or foolish? We don't know. He don't know if his successor is going to be wise and foolish, or maybe even the next king. Yet they will control everything I have gained by my skill and hard work under the sun. How meaningless. So I gave up in verse 20. So I gave up in despair, questioning the value of all my hard work in this world. Verse 21, some people work wisely with knowledge and skill, then must leave the fruit of their efforts to someone who hasn't worked for it. Jeez. This too is meaningless, a great tragedy. Verse 22 kind of hit me a little bit different. And verse 23, he says, what do people get in this life for all their hard work and anxiety? Remember, this is the New Living Translation version. I'm not sure what it is in the NIV or the King James. But listen, hard work and anxiety go hand in hand as someone who experiences that. Worrying about work, worrying about the anxiety that kind of comes with trying to show up every day. What do people get in this life for all their hard work and anxiety? Verse 23 now. Their days of labor are filled with pain and grief. Even at night, their minds cannot rest. It is all meaningless. Yo, listeners, have y'all ever worked so hard that you can't sleep? That you dream about your work? I know I got some auditors listening to this. So yes, yes, I know that feeling too. Yes, oh my goodness. Their days of labor are filled with pain and grief. Even at night, their minds cannot rest. You can't sleep because you're always thinking about work. But guess what? Solomon's saying it's meaningless. So hold on now. Let's backtrack a little bit. This man Solomon said, okay, I had the gals, I had the kalik, I had the silver and the gold, I had the bread, I had the money. Meaningless. I tried to chase after the wisdom, I tried to be the smartest man in the room. We both gonna die anyway, we being both the wise and the foolish, dead on the ride. We both could die. Meaningless, like chasing the wind. Then he talks about the futility of work. You think you could at least work hard and just chase after, career objectives and career goals. But guess what? Someday, you're going to have to leave all the things behind that you worked so hard for, to your successors, to your family, the next generation of you. You don't even know if they're going to manage it well. He found that meaningless as well. Now, there has to be some good in this story, right? And there is. There really is. And that's what we see in verse 24 to 26 at the end. Reading it over again. So I decided there was nothing better than to enjoy food and drink and to find satisfaction in work. Then I realized that these pleasures are from the hand of God. For who can eat or enjoy anything apart from him? God gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy to those who please him. But if a sinner becomes wealthy, God takes the wealth away, and it gives it to those who please him. This too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. And so, what does this mean? Well, we got study notes in the study Bible, which is very helpful. It says here that verses 24 to 26, the alternative to overcommitment to work is the enjoyment of life as God's gift, as God's good gift. This includes enjoying our work while not allowing it to become the key meaning in our lives. This is the first of the teacher's admonitions to take life less seriously and enjoy it more. Life is too short to waste it on the treadmill of ever-increasingly professional accomplishments. We need to take time to enjoy the gifts that God gives us. Man, I don't think y'all hear that, bro. Life is too short to waste on the treadmill of ever-increasing professional accomplishments. We need to take the time to enjoy the gifts that God gives us. And I don't think Solomon is saying here that you can't strive for greatness, because listen here, buddy, that's what I'm going to do. Every single day I wake up, I'm going to try to get better. I want to go up the corporate ladders. I want to be successful. But that's not the only thing you can do. You shouldn't find identity only solely in your work. Because at the end of the day, you're going to leave behind everything you work so hard for. So what's Solomon trying to tell us in this chapter here? Solomon is basically trying to tell us that at the end of the day, true meaning of life is found in God. That's what it is. In order to truly enjoy life to the fullest and find true meaning in it, you got to seek God. You got to chase him. You got to read his word. There's true meaning. That's what the true purpose of life is. It's not in anything else that we do. And again, this is not me or, well, I guess talking about Solomon. But Solomon is not saying that you shouldn't strive to work hard. You shouldn't strive to get that wisdom, you know. You shouldn't strive to get that match in life for key, because I mean, I want one too. Or even find love in that case. But I think what he's saying collectively here is that if you're solely chasing these things, then you're going to find life meaningless, like chasing the wind. You're going to be empty. You will be empty. That's why you kind of see like the sad billionaire. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but you kind of think of that analogy, right? Or actors and, you know, celebrities who have everything, millions of dollars, every car under the sun, the Tesla Model X that I want, yet they can't find fulfillment in life. Because you can't find that true meaning in life from worldly possessions. I'll give another example, right? I love sneakers. I'm a sneakerhead. I'm a hype beast. For those who don't know what a hype beast is, that means you're going after the most sought after sneakers, like the most exclusive sneakers. You know what I mean? So, you know, you go after, you know, your Travis Scott ones, and you go after, you know, your Adidas and things of that nature, right? When I get a new shoe, it's the best feeling in the world. And I think every sneakerhead can relate to that. When you open that box and you sniff that shoe, because, well, you got to sniff the shoe because it smells good. You'd be like, wow, this is a really nice shoe. It's nice. You look at it, you kind of like style it, you know. You put it back in the box if you keep the box. And then that feeling goes away. That feeling of the newness of the shoe goes away. And then before you know it, you're thinking of the next shoe that you want. And when I was thinking about this, I was like, why is it like this? I wanted this shoe for months. I wanted the shoe. I went on the sneaker sites. I got the shoe. And yet I'm not fulfilled anymore. That feeling is gone. And I think that ties with what's talking about here, the futility of pleasure here. You know, we chase everything in this life, and myself included. We chase everything. We chase the sneakers. We chase the love, the relationships. We chase the accomplishments of work. We chase the knowledge, the wisdom, all these different things. But after we get that, what's next? Don't we sometimes feel empty? Don't we feel like, what's next? Because we did the thing that we said we were going to do, but then that feeling goes away. And I don't know if anyone else experiences that, but I certainly do. And I think that's truly what Solomon says. We could chase after everything in this world, every possible thing. But the true meaning and purpose of life is found in Christ Jesus. It's found in God. And that's something that I learned from this passage. That's why I said that King Solomon would have gone triple platinum on the charts in today's music world, because that is such a bar. True meaning and true purpose of life is not found in the world, but it's found through God. And I think that, as well, I think I have a lot of young people listening to this, but as human beings, if we chase the Lord a little bit more, if we chase what he wants for us, if we chase what he wants, let me get my words. If we chase his purpose for our lives, there it is. If we chase his purpose for our lives, then life will be so much sweeter, and then all these other worldly possessions will be, well, just icing on the cake, really, because we already found our true meaning of life. And so I hope that helps someone listening today. And, I hope that it has an impact on you just like it did me, because, man, when I really read this, I felt personally attacked because I tried to find meaning in a lot of different ways on here. But I learned that true meaning comes from the Lord. And so, yeah, man, that is it's a really good passage. And again, this is why I say, young people, my young professionals out there, hola, ¿cómo estás? Me llamo Dave. I'm doing Duolingo. But no, Ecclesiastes is a really good book. I can't believe I'm at a point where I can actually recommend a chapter of the Bible. Mind you, this is the second one that I'm actually reading, because I started in Genesis, but Ecclesiastes has bars, and I'll recommend it once again like I did in episode 2. So yeah, and I hope that it has a lot of meaning to you just like it did me. And so I think we will conclude right there on this episode of the Talking to Myself podcast. Remember, true purpose and meaning of life is found from the Lord, not just the worldly possessions, and not just the things that we think are important. There are much higher things and much more important things, like serving the Lord and looking for his purpose in our lives. And so I hope you all enjoy listening to episode 3 of the Talking to Myself podcast. I can't believe we got to 3, man. Come on. I gotta clap it up. Studio audience, come on, give me some. Yeah, man, this has been so much fun recording. And so I hope that you have an amazing day, evening, night, or whenever you are listening to this podcast. If you are enjoying it, leave a 5-star review at wherever you listen to your podcast, and message me, DM me, let me know what you think. Iron sharpens iron. So just like you, I'm trying to learn as much as I can, as well from a biblical perspective, as well as from life. And so, yeah, thank you all so much for listening. Sila, God is good. We move, and take it easy. We move!